I'm really sick right now and I need to go to bed, but I'm going to address comments like this before I do. Anytime I post any content that shows that I use a racking system for my hognose snakes, I am open to a lot of criticism, and I want to talk about that. First of all, before I get into the hognoses, because they're not the only animals I have, this is Cloud, one of my corn snakes. Cloud is an absolute gentleman and the pride of my whole entire household, and he doesn't live in a racking system. This is where Cloud lives, and underneath him is where Cosmo lives, another corn snake. Corn snakes, whilst not technically being arboreal, really enjoy climbing. So I have made a lot of use of all the space in the tank. As you can see, they have ample opportunity to climb and plenty of hides up and down the tank. Similarly, meet Aristotle and Midas. Aristotle and Midas live in a large tank with plenty of live plants, a filtration system which can handle twice the volume of water, which is essential for axolotls as they produce so much waste. They live on a diet purely of Dendrobina worms, and I monitor the water levels incredibly carefully to make sure that not only are ammonia, nitrate, nitrite levels are at correct levels, but also to make sure that pH, GH and KH are also at the correct levels. You might be wondering why I'm talking about this. Let's get into it. I have owned Aristotle and Midas since they were 3 weeks old. My friend hatched them from eggs from her axolotls. But of course they couldn't always live in that size tank. They started life in this, a 1.3 litre Brastoplast. So now we've ascertained that tubbing is not always bad, and in fact with axolotls it is common practice to remove them from the tank and tub them if they have health concerns or there are water parameter issues. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about specifically hognose snakes. Hognoses are terrestrial snakes. They spend most of their time on the floor, and the reason they have the little shovel nose is because they use it to dig and to burrow. For this reason, they do not need a lot of height in their enclosures, and even in vivarium setups, a lot of people will keep it quite shallow because they're not really climbers and they're not going to benefit from climbing in the same way as arboreal species. And even corn snakes, which are not actually considered arboreal, they still enjoy climbing, and as you can see from mine, they like to be up high. This is not to say that I think vivariums are the devil, absolutely not. I think, and even with hognoses, they can very successfully be used to house hognoses. However, and this is a big however, hognoses comparatively to other snakes are a very small breed of snakes. The males get up to about 18 inches long and females 3 feet at best, okay? So they're quite small, and they know they're small and they think everything is a predator, because in the wild, it is. So in the wild, baby hognoses, and even into their adult life, will choose a small microclimate to live in, and they will very rarely leave that small area, and it is like a security blanket for them because it's their safe space where there aren't any predators. It's quite common in the pet industry for people to get their brand new hognose from the breeder, take it home, put it in this massive vivarium that is beautifully decorated and absolutely gorgeous, and they immediately run into problems. I'm going to pop in a little disclaimer here. This doesn't mean that you will run into problems. You might not, but I do think that the best way to get a snake into a vivarium is to start them off in a small enclosure where they feel more secure and size them up gradually as they grow, and then you can introduce them into their final environment when they are of the right size and they are ready for it and they feel secure and they don't feel exposed. Problems that will arise commonly are not eating, and hognoses are very, very renowned for being picky eaters in captivity. One of the biggest reasons for them being picky eaters is them being in too large an enclosure, but another one is that in the wild they eat predominantly frogs and fishy type things. So in captivity they are fed mice, which is not what they would normally eat, and so it can be a little bit tricky to get them started when they're babies. I'd just like to point out that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them eating mice. It's nutritionally very, very good for them, but I just want to point out that it is not what they're used to in the wild, and so evolutionarily they can be a bit funny about it. Some are, some aren't, you know, each one is individual and each one will be different. Let me just introduce you to Zephyr. Zephyr is my smallest hognose. She is a hatchling from this year who is weighing literally just 9 grams. As you can see, Zephyr is absolutely tiny. If I just put my finger here, you can see comparatively, she's absolutely minuscule. You know, she's absolutely tiny. This is a little sugar container. She could hide in that if she wanted to. There is a little way of getting in there both sides, but she chooses to squidge herself in the smallest gap at the back, and that is because of security. And if I give her an enclosure larger than this, which is a 0.9 litre rub, and I appreciate it seems really tiny to you know, the bystander, that looks like nothing, but that's all she wants. If I put her in anything bigger than that, I risk her not eating. Here we have Chai in a 1.75 litre rub. He's not loads bigger than Zephyr, but he is definitely bigger than she is, and so he's sized up into the next size tub. Also, I'd just like to point out, don't be alarmed by the fact that I'm using kitchen towel as substrate. These guys are actually in quarantine at the moment because they're new. This is Lumi. Lumi lives in a 4 litre rub, and she is a little bit bigger again, as you can see. I mean, even she likes to squidge herself at the back. It's just more secure for them. As you can see, we have a cool end hide, water, some enrichment, and a warm end hide. And this is Juno in her 12 litre tub. She's a big girl. And this isn't the final size tub she'll end up in either. So I hope this has helped you to understand and see why a racking system used correctly works really, really well for hognose snakes in particular. I can't comment on other breeds of snake because I've never kept another breed in a racking system before. But with my hogs, I do intend to breed them, and so a racking system is the best choice for me personally, and I do completely intend to do it with as much education and as ethically as possible. And so with all the love in the world, I would just encourage anybody who looks at a racking system and immediately thinks, oh my goodness, that's cruel, please maybe do a little bit of research, educate yourself on the matter a little bit. I'm sure there are people who do practice badly out there, and I'm sure it does happen, but a lot of the time breeders do know what they're doing, and they do have the snake's best interests at heart. Most of us are not professional breeders and are hobbyists, which means we are really, really passionate about our animals and their welfare. So yeah, I hope this has helped.